So I wanted to thank everyone for coming to this. For those of you who don't know who I am, shame on you. No, I'm kidding. For those who don't know who I am, my name's Chris. I'm from a company called Sundella Consulting. We are PSA and RMM specialists, specializing in helping MSPs to get the best out of their PSA tools. And with me today, I have my good friend, Steve Dempsey from NeoTech. And Steve's going to talk to us all about his journey from replacing a mainstream documentation tool and how he streamlined his processes to do everything in Teams and Autotask and using the configuration items. So I'm not going to steal his thunder because he's going to go through a lot of that stuff with us. But hey, Steve, welcome to the webinar and thank you for attending.
Thank you. Happy to be here for my first one.
Good. Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about who you are and, really what was the driving force behind you changing this and what made you decide to dump your IT documentation tool?
Yeah, I'll get to the gist of it. Being in Manhattan when COVID hit last year, when Manhattan went into lockdown, and I had a lot of chaos internally with my business and clients, like everybody else. But what I took that opportunity to basically, I took my entire business model and threw it out the window last April, literally. And I went back to the drawing board and just worked 7 days a week, which I still continue to do over a year later, and re-examine everything that I did with just a fresh pair of eyes, with a definite focus on how much labor we were spending and efficiencies and waste, duplicate systems and disorganization and the mistakes and the cost internally of just, the techs doing things 3 times over or doing them wrong twice, nobody ever able to find anything. So I reevaluated all of our systems. Fast forward to December. It was already on my radar probably in October. And then I finally decided with the turn of the new year that we were using, is it okay, Chris, if I go into this? Yeah?
Yeah, you carry on.
Yeah, just getting up to my mentality. So in December, like I said, it was on my radar already for 2 months. I started to see, thanks to Chris here, actually, and his book, on Autotask, which he sent me an autographed copy. I still have over here. Thank you, Chris.
No problem.
But I read the book, okay, and that did open my eyes on how underutilized Autotask was internally, right? So that was on my radar probably September, October. Fast forward to December, I finally realized that with IT Glue, and let me just say here, IT Glue is a great product. All right, it's awesome. But I realized just how much redundancy I had between Autotask and IT Glue. So come December, I realized that I can duplicate 95% of the functionality in Autotask and consolidate. And a quick backstory, just to be transparent here to everybody. My IT Glue was an absolute mess, okay? Beyond recognition. It was 5 years worth of people entering things their own way. Any organization, even when I went in there, I had trouble finding stuff. We estimated that I could have a full-time guy. Sorry.
I was just going to say, was that mine ringing?
I get spam calls on Teams, so I was trying to ignore it, but I had to hang up on that one.
It's okay.
Anyway, so come December, okay, I realized when I looked at IT Glue, just how badly we implemented it and how badly that I had kept it, and I just never gave it any attention. I estimated I could have had probably, honestly, a full-time guy organizing our 80, 90 accounts in there, probably for the next 6 months to get it up to speed. So it was just a decision to put on a chopping block and just move everything into Autotask.
So I just wanted to say, and I mean, you mentioned earlier on as well about, IT Glue's a great product, and this obviously isn't, isn't to say or any faults with the product or anything, right? It was purely you and your business as to you didn't set up IT Glue properly, and you were kind of looking for a more efficient way to, to do the documentation and to kind of find more efficient ways to work with Autotask rather than it being a fault with the particular product?
Yeah, truth be told, well, maybe some guys here know me from the tribe. Okay, I'm very direct, and I don't waste time. And once I make a decision or something, I just go with it, and that's it. It's done. So as a matter of fact, to be honest with everybody, I did have a small revolt internally when I announced that we were going to decommission IT Glue. And yeah, I had a small revolt with some of my techs that they thought I was just, constantly changing things and why getting rid of IT Glue, we like it. And I'm like, okay, but I'm like, look at how separated these two systems are. And I actually did have to walk them through, including my service manager. I said, but if we duplicate it over here, I said, that's so much time and labor. I said, and energy that we're going to save. So no, they did not want me to get rid of it, but I had the final say. So it happened.
Okay. Yeah. And just in terms of, getting the buy-in from your team on this process, I mean, you were saying that they obviously didn't want you to ditch IT Glue or anything like that. So once you adopted this process, what was the buy-in from your team? I mean, are they loving it now? Is is everyone kind of on board with the process?
Yeah, everyone's on board. It did take some training and convincing and implementation. I probably spent personally as a business owner, I think I spent about 30 to 40 hours in total on this transition, maybe 50, because I had to go back and redesign in Central and duplicate some of the functionality in IT Glue, and our Autotask configs were a mess. And I had product categories and everything that were in there for years and years, and I just never bothered. So it took a complete reorganization of Autotask to even build my foundation to get it ready. And then once that was done, we were off to the races. So far, so good. On a side note, though, is just this morning, I happened to notice that my team was entering passwords as standalone config items, which I think they were used to from IT Glue. And I had a conversation with my service manager about it this morning because I noticed that was happening. I'm like, why are they doing it this way? And he said, that's the way everyone likes it. So that's a battle that I'm going to lose. I'm going to just give it up and say, okay, that's the way they want it. So be it. But I can see the parallels because they find it easier to have passwords as a standalone config versus embedding it in the config, which is the way I wanted it. So that's a battle that I'm giving up on.
Okay, that's cool. And I'm sure you'll kind of show us all of that stuff in a few minutes. So I just wanted to say, if anyone's got any questions, if you can use the Q&A. I am driving this myself today, so if there are any questions, we'll do the best to answer them. If you have anything directly for Steve, I'm sure he will probably get through a lot of the questions that you guys have anyway. But if you do have any specific questions, then put them in the Q&A, and I'll do my best to answer them. So, Steve, I just wanted to kind of let you get on with it and show us how you've done it and show us some of the things that you've done in your blueprint. And I know you were kind of keen to show that to us. So, do you want to go ahead? I'm sure you've got access to share your screen now.
Sure. That one. I think. Sorry, I have 4 monitors, so I confuse myself sometimes. All right, so you guys, Chris, you guys see N Central?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll go through this relatively quickly because I don't want to put anybody to sleep, and I know we're all IT guys. But before I begin this, I'm just gonna go back to my original biggest point of why I did this. Is it really came down to labor and the massive disorganization that I had internally, which I fully admit to. When I looked into Autotask, I had records all over the place, and I had categories that didn't make sense. Even my device classes in N-Central, I don't know who uses N-Central here, they were being mismatched. Okay, and then I went into IT Glue, and then I had more assets. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. They weren't being synced. They weren't being matched. I had to match them. I had staff, entering things their own way. All right. So it really, for me as a business owner, it just came down to money. Okay. Let's be honest here. So, you know, why have somebody spend 3 hours cleaning something up when I can reduce that to 1 hour and not have to hire more staff and just make, you know, more efficient use of what we have versus me just as a business owner, just seeing dollar signs fly past me, you know, with all the time and energy that we were spending just maintaining these two systems when there was a lot of redundancy. Okay, so, all right. So in my informal document that I posted to the Tech Tribe, which I'm happy to share with anybody, the first thing that I did start with was organizing my classes in Central. All right, as you can see here, because originally what I had was like the switch router, for example, which is 2 different devices, and that was being mapped to the same product in Autotask. All right, which will in turn disorganize everything, you know, down the line from there. All right, so I went into N-Central and I created new classes on the back end, and I don't know if you can do this on other PSAs. I have no idea, but I redid my classes in N-Central so that they all had a one-to-one mapping in Autotask. Like the same thing with laptops, Mac and Windows. I think we only had one class for laptop. Right, and that showed up in Autotask as just one laptop, one category, and that's how I separated it out here to start from the RMM. So that was step 1. So, Chris, are we taking questions like as we go along or towards the end, or?
Yeah, I think if there's a question that's relevant to the topic of what you're talking about, then I'll stop you and ask the question then. But so far there aren't any questions, so that means you're doing a great job so far.
All right. So yeah, like I said, I started the classes, and we had to spend half a day reclassifying all these devices in N-Central. Okay, but it was well worth the time investment to get the foundation correct. All right, so let me jump over to my Autotask here. All right, the configs. Okay. Here we go. The next step that I did was, as you can see, I created all new item categories for what we had. If you notice here, I tried to keep it simple, okay, and I didn't go crazy. And let me see here, the active, yeah, okay. So I kept it in line with categories. In the true sense of the word. So I didn't break it down here, for example, like managed switches or unmanaged switches or whatever the case may be. My mentality here was to keep these categories as top line items so that I could have it around, you know, as you can see, I have 24 configs, a couple of them are inactive because they're systems, but I kept the 22 configs. I didn't want a great number. Okay, so that was the next step that I did. And I color coded everything and all that good stuff. Okay. Once I have my config categories set up, let me show you. I think this alone took me like 10 hours, okay? Once I had all my config categories set up, I went into the details here of the config and I hid a lot of the stuff that Autotask keeps as default. And I think this is one of the things that makes Autotask hugely powerful. All right, so I went in here and hid stuff and created my own fields. And as you can see, a lot of these things are hidden. That's because they're using other configs. All right, but I customized each config according to what I had. And another example is, that's why I called it network gear, because I just didn't want to break this down, you know, into 5 configs and just have more of a mess on my hands.
And that's the thing. So for anyone who's watching this, I mean, that's one of the nice things about, you know, configuration item categories, and in the same way as ticket categories, is you know you can really customize the information that you want to display on the system. So, you know, for example, like you can see with Steve there, he's got, you know, a whole bunch of different user-defined fields, and you can base that specifically on the item category. So, you know, in the case of network gear, you can say these user-defined fields only show up for that specific category.
All right. Yeah. Next item that I had was my products. Okay. My product categories. This, which I will fully admit to everybody, okay, this was another 4 years of me not knowing how to use Autotask correctly, never really looking at it, never organizing it. So I spent a bunch of hours on this, and as you can see, it's nice and clean. And then here's where I went down into the categories, and I created, once again, top line products for all of our items. So like here, like on the network here, you know, I separated down to firewalls and, you know, fully managed and network attached storage devices. So think of these as top line, or I should say maybe second line subcategories. I didn't go into brand names or anything like that. And I put it under the matching configs over here. So you know, security, printing, and that's how you have to organize it on this end.
Steve, I just have
product categories need to be lined up as well. Sorry, yeah, Chris.
Sorry, I just got a quick question from Norb around what were the main customizations and deletions that you did.
So under product categories, what I had here, I think before I see the nice organized screen that you see, I had all like the brand names, I had like the Lenovo servers, you know, model numbers, and then Dell computers and so on and so forth. I had nothing in categories. So yes, I was using product categories to make, for example, Lenovo Workstation or Lenovo ThinkCenter series and things like that. Okay, so that's, you know, when you do that, you're going to end up with probably, which is what I had, a whole mess and probably 20 pages of scrolling of all these different items. So that's why I organized everything to very simple top category, which is very generic, network gear, and then the subcategories, once again, is generic, but everything that I have is going to fit into one of these subgroups. So that answers your question.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. He said, well, that was actually sent during the config item screen. Okay. So sorry, Steve, I think I was a little bit delayed in reading that question. I think Norb was actually talking about during the config item screen around what were the main customizations and deletions that you made on that.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I'll just, all right. I'll go back into that real quick. As far as the config item categories, the only thing that I had here before, I think was the default standard. Yeah, that's all I had here was the one standard category. So here, mind you, I'm going from memory here, so you guys are gonna have to forgive me, but let's go to power management. So I kept things in common with all the config items, the SOP docs. These are links. Okay, these are links up to 3, because I can't see us ever having more than 3 SOPs for one config. And if we do, I'll just add another field. They're links to my Teams, Microsoft Teams documents. So like the SOP docs section, for example, that's on every single category. The credentials are in common with most of my categories. The location, I felt it was, for this. Okay, but let me show you, see if I can get one.
It looks like most of those are customized. I mean, they, like you say, I mean, it's, there's the standard out the box stuff, but it looks like you've either changed or customized.
Yeah, so here's a good one. So like our remote access config, as you can see, like I don't have credentials in here. I don't have SOP links in here. I took all those out. So in this config, all you're going to see are these items. Let me hide that. Yeah, all you're going to see is that. So yeah, I did massive customizations for each category based on what they were, and took out anything that I didn't need. So
another great question actually from Norb. He says, "Are you worried about keeping credentials in AT?"
Nope, not at all. Because in AT you can actually, which I didn't know, you could do this.
Can lock them down, right? Yep. So you can protect the field and you can encrypt the password field. Exactly. So
that's correct. I had no idea Autotask can do that up until like January when I started this project. So for example, my experience liaison does not need any passwords. All right. So she's not part of that security group. So she's a user in Autotask and she can come in here and peruse all this information, but she cannot, excuse me, sorry. She cannot,
so Norb says AT support has access to the data, I believe, in protected fields. In protected fields, they can probably see it, but you can encrypt those fields as well, Norb. So if you then encrypt the field, then obviously Autotask support doesn't have any access to that.
Yes. So yeah, sorry, distracted here. So back to like my experience liaison, Valerie, she has full access to Autotask and the configs, but she can actually see any passwords because she does not need access to passwords. And then as you saw, we use Keeper Security. So I do have links to the Keeper Security records for config items like, let's say, Microsoft 365 tenant that require the 2FA. So.
Okay. It's good.
All right, we're good. One moment here. All right, organizing the product categories. Okay, that was the next step that I did. Eugene, yeah, we don't use Autotask Mobile at all. So I couldn't even tell you. I don't even have it installed.
So I believe you can see the UDFs in the config items on the mobile app. So I think you can, because you can see the categories as well. So but I'll have to check that. But I think it is possible to see that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let me bring down my document, the one that I'm actually looking at here. This is the one that I created, by the way. So the next thing that I did was the IT glue export, and so my mentality was to clean up the export, obviously, because cleaning up the actual records in IT glue was just impossible. So this was my IT glue export, everything with spreadsheets and so on and so forth. So basically, I went through my export and I just decided what I was going to keep and what I was not going to keep. I think like most of the the contact spreadsheet out the window, deleted, and I just kept like most of my config items and things like that. Obviously, like the photos, and that's what I decided what I was going to bring in. So think of it as if you guys were doing a data migration for a client, and if you were migrating their server, for example, to a cloud server, right? Chances are, you probably going to leave some data behind, old data, whatever the case may be. I did the exact same thing. I just went through my export, decided what I was going to keep, and just got rid of the rest. So that was that. All right, so go to my next one. Configs. All right, let me go back to my configs. I think the one other point that I want to mention on the configs, because I do make a point of saying it in my blueprint here, is I quickly discovered that I needed to have two credentials, one for the config and one for the user. And if I have to look to my notes here, and I'm trying not to waste anybody's time, but if memory serves me correctly, I think we were not able to tag, and I don't want to read this whole page and keep everyone waiting. I don't think we were able to tag a config to a user and a config item, right? So that's why I think I realized right away that I had to separate them out so that a credentials for config, I can actually tag it. For example, a read-only password for a firewall would be a credentials record for a config, so I can tag the firewall. If I had a remote access credentials, let's say, some kind of remote software, let's say Splashtop, right? And the user had their own credentials. then that's when we would create a credentials for a user so we can actually tag the user, if that makes sense. That's why I needed to have two of these. Okay. And then as the input fields, we covered, let me see here. One moment, sorry. Yeah, so who was this? Okay. Yeah, so this goes, once again, I didn't know, and I discovered this along the way when I was doing all this. I had no idea that Autotask had these fields available with the multi-line and the single line and the URL. The URL was awesome because that allows me to, for example, link my Word, my documents in Microsoft Teams to the configs. So I use this extensively with URLs. And then the list, the single and multi, which once again allows somebody to tag the different config items or a user contact or something like that. So we made extensive use of these field types. I mean, I know it looks simple, but they were actually enough for me. I wasn't felt that I was lacking. And oh, by the way, as far as the password protection, so here's the items for that. So you just click on that, and then you click on encrypted. Okay, and then that's how we made the password fields. And I think the private was the one that we used for our security groups. I think Chris, right? Is the private you have to check, and then that regulates, I think, according to the security group.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So there's, so again, you can choose kind of who, well, it's protected as well. So you can choose who sees protected fields and private fields, and then encrypted is obviously means it's encrypted in the database as well. So, and just with those field types where you had the URL, are you using that then to link back into Teams to access that document from a config item and tick and stuff? Okay. Are you going to be able to show us that? Do you have some stuff that you can show without kind of revealing any sensitive data or customer information?
Sensitive data, no. So yeah, so just to close this up, I had no idea how easy it was, once again, to make password fields in Autotask and the field types. I didn't know it was here, but once I started to utilize this, I quickly realized that I can reproduce what I had in the other system, with very little effort. So, all right, trying to think of who. Trying to think. A moment. Oh, so yeah, here we go.
Nope.
All right, I'll just show all my clients there. My hand hit the keyboard.
Okay, no one steal any of Steve's clients. Okay, so
it's all good.
Unwritten thing on this webinar. Anyone who's watching, it's not allowed to steal any of Steve's clients. I'll try and edit that part out anyway, Steve, before we.
Yeah, I know my hand hit the key. All right, so this is my company, and we don't. Other clients will have categories here that are very extensive, but let me see. I don't think we have it in there. Sorry, guys. Yes, it's going to might be difficult because I don't have it linked. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Okay. So here are my SOP docs. Okay, I don't, obviously I have nothing here, but in order for us to link a Microsoft documents, which is, what we use, or an Excel spreadsheet or anything on Microsoft Teams, okay, I'm just going to edit it, and I just literally just put the URL in there. And then, yes, it is a clickable URL so that you don't have to edit. So I just put the URL in there and then save the document. And then if I need to pull up the SOP, I click on it, and then it will open it up in Microsoft Teams or SharePoint, whatever the case may be. So.
Okay. So you're using those UDFs rather than using the built-in documentation within Autotask.
Correct. I'm not really a fan of the built-in documentation. I mean, obviously it has its benefits. You can link to tickets and all that good stuff. It's just, I don't like the editor too much personally. And, also, as a team, it might be a little difficult for us to go. We have extensive documentation of Microsoft Teams and Word, right? So that format, and obviously Word is the best, right? Versus maybe a plain vanilla editor in Autotask. So I didn't want to deal with two different formats. So I couldn't even tell you what the documentation system can do in Autotask. I don't even know. I didn't even look at it. I just went with, let me just link the SOPs that I had now. And since almost all my SOPs were in Teams anyway, I had no intentions of copying things over and spending weeks trying to get them into Autotask. I mean, so it was just easier for me just to create a link and put it into Teams. So it works very well for us, no complaints.
Because you can do the links actually in the documentation manager in Autotask anyway. So, you know, instead of using them through user-defined fields like you got there, you can use the documentation manager and actually link that into, still link it back to SharePoint or Teams or what have you. So, so there is that option as well. But I kind of quite like this way too. And this is kind of the way I would be doing it if I was to add these things in. And I've got one or two user-defined fields that I'd do very similar things with. But on the whole, I would use the documentation manager. So there's multiple ways to do it for anyone who's, you know, on the call who's wondering. You know, you can use the built-in documentation manager that's built into Autotask to do a lot of this stuff.
All right. Let me. All right. So the next thing is for those of you that are using a password manager, we're using Keeper Security, and you know, I don't want to, for obvious reasons, I don't want to open up clients on that. But let's see here. Okay, so I created this, and this is an example of email platform. Obviously, we have a lot of clients on Microsoft 365. So I made a UDF, the Keeper Security record, and this is for our, you know, the login and the password, but more importantly, the 2FA. All right, so, you know, Autotask can't have the 2FA code in here, so I just simply got around that by just creating the URL field for the Keeper Security record, and then making that just available to all the techs, because obviously, if they don't have access to it in Keeper Security, you know, they won't get to it anyway. And then what we did was I just put the URL to the record for the, you know, add the username and the password and did 2FA code. Once again, it works very well. It's just a couple extra steps, but really has not been a hindrance whatsoever. So.
Okay.
All right. Next thing. Size. Okay. So another important point is I took advantage of, no, not it. Where would it be? Sorry. Trying to show you an example. All right. Yeah. Sorry, I'm tripping over my own feet here trying to find it on the fly. And Chris, maybe you can help me out here. But Autotask in their configs, all right, you can have default selections so that when you selected that category that was already going to give it a product. All right, so maybe I could show you in the, all right.
Yeah, no. So exactly. So if you pick, so if you pick that, it should allow you to enter the product. So actually, and by the way, you can see there the product is a required field. So in the new release that's coming out in a couple of weeks' time, in the 2021.1 release, from what I've seen, I believe that product will no longer be a required field. So you can actually create a configuration item without a product.
Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I apologize. This is my first webinar. I am a little nervous. All right. I'm trying to do this on the fly too. So sorry about this.
Don't be nervous. Take your time. It's all good.
Here's the example that I was getting to. what I did set in the config categories, as you saw when I picked the LAN, okay, it filled in my item type, which is config info, and it tagged the product. All right, so I made sure that was, I went through that a lot to make sure that was set. One, it saves your team time, and two, right, you avoid disorganization, because this way, when they select LAN, these two items get filled in, nobody has to think about it, it's just done, and it's done correctly, and that's why. So I made heavy use of that when appropriate. All right, so and then I go into more of the configs. Okay, product items. All right, and then the next thing I did was the product items. Let me see if I can go find a nice subcategory here. Yeah, so I think some of these are, a lot of them are inactive. Okay, yeah, this is probably too generic. Okay, but another item that I had to address when you go into your products, all right, is the default item type, which was here, right? And then also the default item category. Mm-hmm. So I had to create, I had to go through our products, and this is actually a good example of what you can see what we had with, WatchGuard routers. We haven't touched those in years, and so on and so forth. And I think actually, yeah, here we go. So here's a good example. So Ubiquiti USG Pro, what I had to do for all these products, once again, took hours and hours and hours, but it was worth it, is I set a default configuration type and then also a default category, so that once again, that kind of filled it in once you used it. So it's a big time saver, and that's how you get it organized. Also in this, let me see here. Yeah, so that's how you're going to get it organized in this list you see to the left, like under the network gear. So you have to set it. You have to set this category, the category. Okay, so 1 second. That's the train.
And actually, Steve, on that product category, so if you just want to go into your list of config items, if you can, without revealing anything, it's actually the product category itself that categorizes the configuration items. So if you go into on the bigger menu at the top, oh, okay, or you can go that way.
Yeah, I was go this way.
And then, no, I meant a list of actual. If you go back to your NeoTech company where you were before, yeah, and then just click on, yeah, so you can see there where it says server Azure and server on-prem. Oh, you had it.
No, I lost the. All right.
Yeah, go back to. Oh, sorry, no one's going to see that company. I'll edit these out, Steve.
That's all right.
Yeah, so if you go to config items, and then you can see that list that's going to come up now. So where it says desktop Windows, endpoint protection, laptop Windows, those categories are actually product categories that it actually categorizes them at that point. So when you were talking about those product categories, for anyone who wants to know, those are not configuration item categories in there. That's the actual product itself.
Yes, that is correct. That's why I had, yes, thank you for reminding me. That's why, and that's another reason why I set all that out. Because when I wanted the config items, once again, like if you mimic IT glue, right, that you have your config items and everything's categorized under whatever, passwords, firewalls, switches, whatever the case may be. This section was also a complete mess for most of our clients. And as you can see now, it's totally organized under categories. And then also, let me show you, I think if I can find it really quick here. Yes, so I made a dashboard in Autotask just so you guys can see. I mean, whatever, we can explore out these names later. It's all good. I made an Autotask dashboard that breaks down all the config items to me in their categories. So I can actually come in here and see, everything by category and pull it up if I want to. I don't refer to this too often, but once again, it's just functionality that you can have that's readily available. You just have to just invest in time to build it. I also had a dashboard that doesn't seem to be probably somewhere else because I haven't used it in a couple of weeks. I'm drawing a blank. But I did have a dashboard that showed me the uncategorized configs, because every once in a while a tech will enter something, it'll show up as other, all right, and also even from Central, sometimes they will show up as other. So I made a filter to show me all those where I can just come in, once a month, or I think I have somebody else do it, and then find all those other config items, and then you can properly categorize them once again, just with the goal of just keeping your system organized. So, okay. All right. Yeah, the config item dashboards, which is what I'm showing you now. Oh, okay. And then let me pull up something else. All right, I'm gonna pull my teams over here. All right, so whatever you guys are gonna see, what you're gonna see. But this is our Microsoft lists, which what we've been using extensively. I absolutely love lists in Microsoft Teams, and we have hundreds of documents in here, probably around 250, give or take, maybe 300. All these URLs that you see in here, a lot of these are referenced in those Autotask SOP fields that I showed you before. So when they open, they just open up in Teams. So after I had spent 40 or 50 hours getting everything organized, see, I think it's going to open it up in, okay, there we go. Okay. So the one thing that I wanted to make absolutely sure, okay, after spending a week of my life doing this, is that I was not going to end up with another disorganized mess in 6 months. So what I did was I made this list, and it's called Autotask Input, that I trained my team on, okay? And I think this is actually very important. So I created this index so that when my team has to input a credential or something else, as you can see, info being inputted, like a good example is like local IP information, LAN, right? And then it tells them right here that this is only a single config item rather than creating, let's say, 3, right? And then in 6 months now, you're going to have 3 LAN configs and 4 of these and 5, whatever. So I created this list so that everyone can refer to it, my team internally. So whenever they input information into Autotask, they refer to this list. It gets inputted correctly. And here we are 5 months later, and I would say we're 95% spot on. I mean, there is the occasional mistake. I'm not going to deny that, but we reference this list so that stays organized. It goes in the same way. And then when it goes in the same way, everyone can find it the same way. So any questions about that? I don't know.
Let me just see if there's any questions. So Norb, how do you keep track of config items that has a MAC address for LAN, wireless LAN and cellular?
You could just create custom fields for that. I mean, that's the beauty of
UDFs, yeah.
Big items. You can custom make those fields for anything. So just make a config item. Well, not make it, but under like your network gear config item, just make a section with a text field that's going to say MAC address. So,
and then he's saying, does N Central automatically put that information into your UDF?
It will, but let me go back to. It will not put it into those fields that you make. All right. So
yeah, so it puts it somewhere else, but
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It'll put it just I think in the description or something like that. So no, it's not going to do it as far as I know. So I think
yeah, it should put it kind of into there. Although,
yeah.
So you with things like the data RMM, you can have it the data RMM map, you know, user-defined fields or custom fields as they call it into the user-defined fields within the PSA. But yeah, I don't know about any of these other RMM tools.
Yeah, it puts it into here. And then also while we're on here, this related items, all right, I had no idea, once again, that this was even here up until January. And I'm like, what's this related items, you know, section? And then I realized, I'm like, this is awesome. I'm like, this is, you know, we could tag other assets. And this also, you know, pushed me over the edge to say, okay, that's it. I'm like, we are going full into Autotask, because now I have a config item. I can go to related items and add a related item. And that's how we're tagging, like, you know, the password credentials item, config items and things like that. And that's how we're relating things internally. So, yeah. Which is awesome.
That related items is pretty cool. It, like I say, I mean, it I guess it's designed as well that in, you know, in the old days when I guess everyone used to build custom built PCs, you can kind of go, hey, you know, this is the motherboard and this is the hard drive that's hanging off it, and this is the memory, and they're all related together to make this one config item with all these related items. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's actually been in the product for a very long time, and you've always been able to do it, but they've kind of just made it more prominent now and put it as a tab. It used to kind of be hidden away a little bit. So,
and then the other item, yes, this one. Okay, and once again, I'm being transparent because I'm not hiding anything. I had no idea that Autotask kept version history, because it goes back to my original point of we were using Autotask, you know, 20% of its functionality, and I was using IT Glue 20% of its functionality. So these are things that I just didn't look at, and then when I started this transition, I was like, oh wow, I had no idea I can do this. So you guys might be afraid, hey, you know, IT Glue does all the auditing, which it does very well. But as you can see, Autotask does the auditing as well. And it tells you who looked at those private fields, for example. And it will tell you who looked at the password fields. And it keeps a complete trail of who looked at what and who edited what. So you can see just as much history as you can as the other system. So.
And actually, Steve, you'll be probably quite happy to know that in 2021.1 release,
yes, I saw that.
There's actually rollbacks now as well. So if you made a change and you've messed something up, even inside a user-defined field, you can just roll back to a previous config item. So it kind of does all the versioning history and the rollbacks, and that's coming. I think the 2021 release. You guys might even have it over there already. I think it's.
Yeah, in 2 weeks. I saw the announcement this morning.
2 weeks, yeah. I know they delayed it for a little bit, but yeah, so that's going to be cool. And I think that'll certainly help with what you're doing, because you're using the config items quite extensively. So being able to roll back when somebody made a mistake or what have you, that's going to be a really cool thing for you.
Yeah, if you really drill down into what I did with the config items and the config categories, and then I will say it once again, okay, IT Glue is a great product. But if you properly utilize the config categories like I did, you can duplicate that functionality almost 100% in Autotask. And other than just it being a little different, you're not losing any productivity at all. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it seems like you've definitely, leveraged the configuration item side quite extensively within Autotask, and a lot of the stuff that that you could do in IT Glue, especially from keeping the configuration items and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, Autotask is very capable of doing it. You just have to customize it and configure it to do what you want it to do.
And then the other item that we started to, I knew it was there, but I never used it, was the site configuration, as you can see here. Okay. And, this still is a work in progress, but I also customized our site configuration. As you can see, it is pretty simple. So I have not gone crazy with it. What I like about the site configuration is that it shows up in the configs, right? So when you pull up like a computer config, you can just see the site configuration and see what their hours of operations are. And this is stuff that I built personally. It probably just needs a little my attention. I didn't go crazy with it, but I just like having to be able to input these top level items for a client site. And then I do believe it shows you on the right hand side in the view, or maybe I have that view turned off. Yeah, I think I have that turned off, but Chris, you should be able to go to the site configuration right from the config item, right? Yeah.
You can do it from, yeah, so you can do it from the company, or if you scroll all the way to the top on that screen, yeah, where it says,
oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
The glasses.
Yeah.
Yes, that's something I liked. We don't have it filled in because this isn't, I'm looking at NeoTech, this is internally, but we do have the site config filled in for all our rest of our accounts. So I did like that functionality, that just from a config item, I can just come in here and just get a top level view. And as you notice, I also, by design, I kept those categories in the site config. I kept this very top level. I did not get any granular or detailed or anything like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the site config, for those who wanted to know, that it's slightly different from normal configuration items, where it's more relating to the specific site. So the company at a whole. So things like you've got their hours of operation and AD structure and that kind of stuff. That's relating globally to the whole company rather than to each individual item as a config item.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Chris, you'll be able to blur out like a client name, right, later on? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so for those who've asked, people have asked about the recording, obviously out of respect for Steve, because he is showing company names, I'm going to edit this before I actually send it out to anyone. I'm not just going to send the link. So this is where my skills in Camtasia or Final Cut Pro are really going to come into their own. So
yeah,
yes,
that's what I'm asking is I wanted to show everybody. I mean, not that you can be able to tell anything, but here's a more very well developed. This is what I wanted to show everybody. So as you can see, they're all categorized in here. Yes, I do have apparently one, the WAP box. So I don't know why that showed up as other hardware. But as you can see, this is very, other than that one uncategorized item, this is very, very organized. My team likes it like this, that they can just go in here and then just pull down, the one firewall, here are the credentials. Okay, well, here are all the credentials config, and just drop it down. It's organized, it works. As you can see, I got there in 3 or 4 clicks. It's easy, and we love it. And the other thing which I will touch upon once again, I'm sorry to beat a dead horse here, is just as a business owner, I always had sync problems, or I should say disorganization, because I had a 3-part chain, right? I had from N Central going to Autotask, from N Central going into IT Glue, and then IT Glue and Autotask trying to sync with each other. So I always had items that were either not syncing properly, not matched properly, something. There was always something, because it was a 3-part chain. And then once I turned this down to a 2-part chain, where I just go from my RMM, in my case, N Central, to Autotask, I mean, I'm telling you, the cost savings of labor and your mental energy of just being able to match things nicely, it's, I wish I did this way sooner. So. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you've done an awesome job. I mean, this is brilliant. I've actually, I've not seen anyone else's Autotask as good as this, and with as much effort put into it. So, and it's really nice to see. It's kind of good that you're actually leveraging the configuration items to their fullest, and using those user-defined fields really nicely from a configuration item perspective. So it's really good to see.
Yeah, and also we get the best of both worlds, because I get the full linking to my Microsoft, the Teams documents. We're able to keep the team structure. I have not had a single regret in the 5 months that I did this, and I can't think of one single item that I'm like, oh man, this was almost a deal breaker. I mean, it's just a little different, but same functionality, same searching, all that good stuff. If not, it's even better because I eliminated all that extra work and disorganization and just trying to get everything to match up. It was a nightmare.
And actually, I think as Autotask builds out their actual documentation manager, I think this will get a lot better as well and a lot easier. So, you know, I know you keep a lot of your documents in, or all of your documents in you know, Teams and SharePoint at the moment. But, you know, I think once you can see on the top of that screen, there's a documentation manager tab, and that's really, or button even, and that's really where, you know, this is going to start to be able to say those actual documents that you have as SOPs stored in Teams or SharePoint, one of those things, you're going to actually be able to store them directly inside Autotask as well. So, you know, and I think then you can start to bring everything into the same system without having to jump out into a different product to access any of that information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I mean, Chris, you have the blueprint, right? So you can share with everybody.
I don't have it to hand actually. Have you got it that you can show?
Yeah, I mean, this is. I know I think there's a few people here in the Tech Tribe, and this is what I posted on the Tech Tribe, but it's not private at all. Okay, and I'm happy to share this with anybody. It's not private, but this is the tutorial I made with screenshots of what I did with explanations of where I started, and considering just what an absolute mess that I had on my hands. Like I said, it took me 40 or 50 hours to do all this because I started from scratch. But depending on how large, you know, you guys, the number of your assets and things like that, and plus I designed it for you, all right? So you could probably do it in half the amount of time. And also on a lot of these things in my blueprint here, I had to go back probably 3 or 4 or 5 times and tweak them because, you know, once we went live, it was like, oh, you know, I have no place to enter this, or I made required fields and didn't really think about, you know, cases that there was nothing to put in those fields and all that good stuff. So anyway, but this pretty much documents exactly what I did and how I did it and how I got everything to line up. And if you follow this, I mean, you know, you could probably do it in 10 to 20 hours.
Yeah.
Whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. And I think if you don't mind, Steve, I can either I can put a link to this in the show notes and send it with it, or you know, if anyone wants to speak to you, I know a lot of the people, just looking at the names, most of the people are on the Tech Tribe, so they probably know who you are anyway. But we can, you know, I'll make sure that people get your details anyway, and they can reach out to you if they need to and get a copy of this document. So,
all right. So I see Norbert's question here. Yes. So we have. Let me see here. Like I am like obsessed with like Teams and lists. I'm obsessed with lists like the last couple of months. Yeah,
I've not actually used lists before. It looks pretty cool.
Yes. So as you can see, this is still being filled out. Okay. But yes, the answer to your question is in Microsoft Teams, we do have a list. As you can see, a client SOP index, which are SOPs for individual clients. And then yes, those are linked back to Autotask. And also, like, we made a list for this, right? Because I did speak to Autotask about this. Once again, Chris, you'll have to blur this out later, okay? But I did speak to Autotask about this, and they didn't have a dashboard. They don't have the functionality to make a dashboard to show me all the recurring tickets that we were in the process of making. So then when we made a Microsoft list, as you can see, there's a master ticket number, and I think it just reproduces and adds on to that. But, you know, very quickly, I just made a list to show us all the recurring tickets so I can just come in here and see what's going on. Because unfortunately, Autotask does not show you that until the ticket is created. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's amazing. There's some really good things, and I'm sure that everyone that is on here, I know Norb's been gets the prize for asking the most questions, which is great. I think we should give him the prize of the most
asked questions.
The most valuable question asker, I guess. So Norb, I've just decided that you've won the prize of my free book. You've probably got it anyway, but I'm going to send you a free book anyway, just for you asking so many questions, which is really good. So, really appreciate that.
But to answer your question, Norbert, is this list is manually, yes, this list is manually generated. We have to, just come in here and add the records. And to answer your second question is, yes, MS Project is fully implemented on my side, also integrated somewhat with Autotask. So maybe, Chris, we can have a second webinar on that subject of Microsoft projects and Autotask, which we use. I made kind of a hybrid on that one between Autotask and Teams. So
absolutely,
very well.
Yeah, I think that should definitely be a follow-up session on here, and I think we'll have a lot of people coming to that one, and definitely a lot more people. There was a lot of people looking at this one today, so I'm sure we'll get most of the Autotask community coming to that one for sure. So.
Ian, yeah, we don't, we use Cloud Radio. So the client sees, our clients anyway, see absolutely nothing from Autotask reports or even the organization that I showed you. They just see what's in Cloud Radio, which does not reproduce those categories or anything like that. So yeah, that answers your question.
Cool. Awesome. Steve, you got anything else?
No, I'm going to send you this document to share with everybody. If anybody, as some guys know in the tribe, I do try and help as much as I can, because I've been in this business for a long time, and I would say up until 3 years ago, I actually didn't know very much, because it was just me and two other people. So anyway, if anybody wants to answer or ask me any specific questions, I am very happy to answer them. Whatever you want to know, if you want me to send you screenshots, just ask me. And if anybody wants to talk to me, I am very happy to schedule like a 30-minute call. To be clear, I don't charge. I don't ask for anything in return. I ask nothing of anybody, actually. So if anybody wants to know anything, I'm very happy to share it or jump on a call with you if you want to know more. No problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I like about Steve. You're one of those guys on the Tech Tribe that, just gives freely of your time and answers freely, all the questions that people ask. And that's why I kind of asked him to come on this webinar, because I thought, Steve's got so much knowledge to share, and is so gracious with his time and giving away, all of this free information. So, by all means, reach out to me, reach out to Steve. Steve, do you want to give them maybe your email address or something so people know how to get hold of you?
Yeah. Do I just type it into?
Yeah, or if you you can just type it into the maybe into the chat, and then I'll make sure that everybody gets a copy of it. So just make sure you send it to all panelists and all attendees, and then I'll also put it into the show notes of wherever we end up putting this presentation.
All right. Oh, here we go. I finally found it. I don't normally use Zoom too much, so.
And if anyone's got any good experience in doing things like blanking out names in these sorts of things, let me know. I have a little bit of experience in it, but hopefully somebody out there knows how to do it. So, somebody's asked questions.
Today, if you want, Chris, because I posted videos on the Tech Tribe where I've had to blur out my client names and stuff like that. I mean, it is what.
Yeah, exactly. I'll figure out, but otherwise, yeah, I'm going to send you a recording anyway, and then you can download it and do what you need to do. So, Eric had a question. All info about Tech Tribe is new for me. We're just in the process of onboarding. Okay. So could you explain what the Tech Tribe is? Steve, you've been on the Tech Tribe for a long time. Do you want to explain what it is?
Oh, okay. So All right, I'll just touch upon that briefly on my backstory, and that's why I actually referenced 3 years. Okay, so up until 3 years ago, it was just me and two full-time techs. All right, we were not an IT company. We were basically three guys that were just fixing stuff. And I had revenue, close to $1 million a year. How I did this with just me and two other people, I don't know. It's still a mystery to this day. All right, because I do have now, I have almost 20 full-time people working for me today in those 3 years' time, and I'm still not even able to keep up sometimes. But anyway, to get getting sidetracked is up until 3 years ago, I really didn't know what I was doing. I didn't really have any direction as a business owner. I had no sales marketing strategy, nothing whatsoever. Somebody mentioned the Tech Tribe to me, and I joined it, and that was 3 years ago. And I can truthfully say, and I'm not associated with the Tech Tribe, I'm just a member, and I pay for a subscription like everybody else. All right, I can truthfully say that the Tech Tribe fundamentally changed my business because I learned so much in the tribe as far as business, marketing, strategy, standardization, technology. Even a year later, like even my view on my own business had changed dramatically from the Tech Tribe. And now fast forward to today, that I've learned such a tremendous amount, which is part of why I do this, because I actually want to give back. Because if I didn't join the Tech Tribe, I'll be honest with you, it may still be me and like, three full-time techs, because I had no direction. I was just a small business owner, just making money, cash your check, right? And that was it. And the Tech Tribe fundamentally changed my course as far as my professional life.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. And Eric, it's basically I guess it's a community, an online community where you can get training resources and workshops and marketing materials, that kind of thing. And once a month they do an expert Q&A call where you can just kind of jump on and ask a bunch of questions. Steve's very active in it. I'm very active in it. So you can go to the Tech Tribe, or I'm sure, Steve, do you have an affiliate link you can give him if he needs to?
I don't even know if I have one. I just posted the URL.
Okay. Eric, then if you don't mind, I'll send you, if Steve doesn't mind, I'll send you my affiliate link so you can join up on the Tech Tribe. So I'll touch base with you afterwards, Eric, and we can talk about it in more detail.
There's an affiliate link in the tribe. I had no idea.
You didn't know that?
I don't pay attention to any of these things. I recruited a couple of guys from LinkedIn on the Tech Tribe. I wish I knew that 3 months ago. All right.
You gotta speak to the big man.
I know, it's okay. It's all good.
Have a chat with the big man. He'll send you an affiliate link. So, and just full disclosure, by the way, if you do have an affiliate link, anyone who signs up and stays a member for more than 3 months, then if you sign up with one of our affiliate links, then we just get a little bit of money every month back from the Tech Tribe. So it's kind of worth it. And anyone who's a member, by the way, can get an affiliate link. It's not just something that only certain people get. So, and then Ian had one more question as well. He said, do you link the config items to contracts in Autotask for billing purposes?
Oh, so yes, because that's another item that I'll touch upon, which goes back to actually End Central. Okay. That was another huge mess I had on my hands up until literally December of last year. Is I would have techs onboard computers and not tell me, and I had no idea. All right, and I had one contract, for example, where one tech was working with them for a long time. I think we were billing them for something like 23 computers, when the reality is they had close to 40, and he was never telling me that he was adding these computers on because we had no checks and balances in place, and so on and so forth. So anyway, in End Central, it does have a functionality that if you link it to Autotask contracts, you can configure it so that it updates those quantities. So I have ours now configured for laptops and desktops that on the 25th of every month, it will update the contracts in Autotask based on the numbers in N-Central. So now when we onboard computers, I don't need to ask anybody. Nobody needs to tell me. It just happens automatically. Huge labor saver. And obviously, you know, from a billing point of view, it changed a lot. So.
And actually, Autotask has changed it now. They got something built in called billing items or billing products, which basically allow you to do exactly the same thing. So it says when a configuration item is added from any source, you know, N-Central or Data RMM, whatever the case might be, then go in and add it as a billing product to the contract and automatically bill for it every month. So, so that's actually now built into the product. So wherever you're bringing in your configuration items, you can create them as billing products. And then create billing rules inside your contracts to go and bill for that stuff every month. So, so yeah, it's a fairly easy thing to do. And Ian, again, you know, I can touch base with you and go through that in more detail if you want to know how to do that.
Yeah, but overall, you know, I'm just going to add this. So the overall is, you know, as a business owner, I invested a lot of time of my time, you know, in January, but 5 months later, I can truthfully say that now that everything's organized, and if you put the time and effort in, the labor savings, the cost savings, the time savings, my mental energy, our productivity has probably increased tenfold since January, by fully utilizing what Autotask can really deliver. And thanks to Chris and his book, right, for 5 years, I only saw Autotask as a ticket system. That's the only way I looked at it. And after I read his book, you know, it hit me like a bolt of lightning. I'm like, wow, I need to go look at Autotask again. So, and I'm glad I did. No regrets.
Good. Well, thank you for that, Steve. I'll send you the check later for saying good things about my book. So appreciate that a lot. So Steve, really appreciate this as well. And yeah, I mean, you're just an awesome guy, and this is brilliant what you've done. So really appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone on here has got some really, you know, valuable insight out of this. So really appreciate it, and yeah, let's do the next one on projects.
Oh, Kevin wants to know the name of your book.
Yeah, who wants to know the name of my book?
Kevin wants to know the name of the book.
Okay, well. The book is called PSA Profitability. So it's all about PSA profitability, I guess. So it's about kind of understanding how to get the system set up in such a way that you can get profitability information out of it. So it talks about burden rates, talks about contracts and billing, all of that kind of stuff. If you want any more information, you can either reach out to me directly or you can go to the website, which is psaprofitability.com, and there'll be some information on there on the book.
Cool. All right, Chris, I'll email you the document, and then you can, I guess, post on the webinar, however you're going to work it. So
yeah, awesome, great. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Steve, and thanks everyone for coming, and really appreciate it.
All right.